Chapter 14. The Veiled Lady. It looked like a normal Saturday morning. Eileen Donovan was off early to the Pride Mansion. On occasions, she worked for them as a housemaid. That day, the Prides were throwing one of their parties and they needed help. Now Ferry was home with his father. Inside the workshop full of boards, nails, chisels, and other iron tools, Ferry felt like a stranger. He couldn't do much, for he was in danger of hurting himself almost every time. So he had nothing else to do but chatting on and on, the few occasions his father asked to keep him company. Tired of answering the most unusual questions about the moon, sky, sun, and stars, Peter agreed to let him spend the day with Matilda and Ben. Ben greeted him the moment they met, and they went to pick up Matilda. The three of them planned to play on the hills that day. But right before going out the door, Matilda's father warned her one more time to stay away from the shepherd's forest. It seemed to be the advice the parents were giving their children increasingly often. Just to feel safer, Matilda brought Shadow along. No one had mentioned anything since the pet incident. Nor Ferry would tell the strange meeting he had witnessed in his backyard. But he was certain their pets were connected to him, somehow. Now they were walking towards the hills, laughing and chatting. Matilda was telling them about Shadow's latest bravery, although Ferry knew that his real name was actually Sage. He had saved a pigeon with a broken wing. The dog didn't seem to pay them any attention, and walked behind the girl. They reached the town's outskirts, when somewhere ahead, a long silhouette loomed, blown by the crisp fall wind. Ferry thought it was just another figment of his imagination, as usual. He said to himself that no matter how scary that creature was, he would pretend it wasn't there. But the silhouette didn't vanish. Instead, it continued to walk towards them. He could clearly see it in the gloomy light of the day. Ferry closed his eyes, clenched his fists and carried on, praying that the creature wouldn't be the hag of the mist he met before. He didn't go very far when he noticed his friends stopped talking. He turned and saw them way behind him. They stood still, staring at the floating silhouette ahead. So they could see it too. Even Shadow could see it. He was snarling without taking his eyes away from it. "Ferry, stop. Come back," Ben shouted without moving. But it was too late. The tall, thin figure was coming towards him, faster than he expected. He was so surprised, he couldn't move. When the strange being was close enough, Ferry could observe it. It was a woman dressed completely in purple clothing. A very tall woman. The dress seemed from another time, and so ragged, it looked like the attire of a ghost. A long, thick, almost opaque veil covered her face, and Ferry could see her grey hair through it, falling down her shoulders like a river, all the way to her waist. She was wearing a big slouch hat, also purple. Feathers were decorating her hat, but not the kind he would see at the usual birds. In fact, he had never seen such feathers, not even in books. That person was now even closer, so Ferry could feel the perfume she was wearing, moist soil, moss, and fresh grass. "Ferry, run," he could hear Matilda shouting behind him. But his legs wouldn't listen. He stood still, holding his breath. The purple creature was now close to him. So close, he could see her breath under the veil. But he couldn't see any features of her face. Still, her gleaming eyes were staring at him from behind the veil. Her head tilted as she observed him. And to his horror, her gloved hand stretched out extremely close to his neck. She stopped a few inches away from his chest, ready to snatch the raven's stone, well hidden under his thick sweater. When she was about to grab it, something hissed in his ear and hit the creature's hand. Matilda used her sling with extreme precision. The hand retreated, and the purple creature turned and walked away, vanishing on a back street. In the blink of an eye, his friends were right beside him. "What was that?" Ferry asked, feeling as if waking up from a dream. "That was the town's curiosity before you were born," Ben replied with a serious look on his face. "You were lucky I was here. Who knows what that witch might have done to you? Matilda added, polishing her sling on her coat sleeve. A witch? Ferry wondered. Matilda looked all around her, then spoke in a low voice. Her name is Lavender Sky, and she's the oldest woman in town. Those who founded the town found her here, living in her cottage by the northern hills. She must be more than 100 years old. No one heard her speaking. No one knows how she really looks because her face is always hidden behind that veil. And no one is ever visiting her. She's probably suffering from some deformity or something like that, Ben added. Or she's probably so ugly and old she would scare anyone in town, Matilda continued. She comes to town from time to buy groceries. She has a garden full of vegetables and an orchard, with fruits that grow and ripe all year long, even during winter. That's why people think she's a witch. How else would you explain it? There is no such thing as witches, said Ben. Sure there is, she cut him short. You should know. You're descending from one. Ferry frowned. What do you mean? Ben's great-grandmother was a nomad fortune teller, the girl explained. That is not true. Ben protested. Just because she was working at the circus doesn't mean she was a witch. Yes, she was, the girl insisted. Dad told me so. And your mother has inherited her gift, they say. That's why my dad won't let me come over to your place, so she can't put a spell on me. My mother is not doing any witchcraft. Ben cried, with tears in his eyes. Then he turned and ran back to the town. Ben, wait. Ferry shouted behind him. Let him go, Matilda snorted. He's nothing but a weeping boy. And you should let him be, said Ferry and went after Ben. Matilda was about to say something, but then she turned around and followed Ferry. Suddenly, shouts caught their attention. Then they saw Ben surrounded by a loud group of children. Billy Pride and Danny Stevens were among them. Leave him alone, Ferry shouted, and in the blink of an eye, he was right next to Ben. Matilda followed, taking her sling out. Even Shadow was snarling. Look who we have here, Billy said with a grin. The weird ones, he said, and he laughed, followed by the other boys' laughter shortly after. If you touch Ben, you'll have to deal with me, said Ferry, trying to look menacing. Although the sun caressing his face and the gust of wind going through his fair hair made him look anything but. And me, Matilda added, taking a step closer. Unlike Ferry, she really looked menacing. Billy Pride stopped laughing, but the smirk on his face remained. We just wanted to have some fun, that's all. And guess who we met on our way? The veiled lady. So we thought we should send your friend Ben to bring us a feather from her silly hat. But you interrupted us and she left. All you do is to spoil the fun, Billy said with a squint. Yeah, some fun. Stealing from an old woman, Ferry replied. Billy's eyes sparkled. If you're so brave, then why don't you take a feather from her hat? How could I? You said she left. The smirk on Billy's face grew larger. Not like that. How about stealing a feather from her hat tonight? Ferry was hesitating. You mean break into her house? That's right. Unless you're scared. Ben interfered. Ferry, don't mind him. Let's just go. I'm not afraid, said Ferry. Just tell me the time and I'll be there. Billy gave it a thought. At midnight, at the witch's house. My parents are throwing a party and I'm sure they won't notice me missing from my bed. We'll be coming along, Danny and I, just to be sure you'll be there. And you can't trick us. You won't find feathers like that around here, that's for sure. Very well, Ferry agreed. Tonight you'll have that feather. Better yet, 3 feathers. But you must promise something. What? That you will never bother Ben again. Not ever. All right, Billy agreed, and the 2 boys shook hands, nodding to each other. Then he walked away, followed by his group. You shouldn't have done that, said Ben in a trembling voice, after a while. Ferry forced a smile, trying to look confident. Don't worry, Ben. He'll get those feathers, and he'll never bother you again. Then I'm coming with you. I think I could sneak out the window when my parents are asleep, said Ben. I'm coming too, said Matilda in a low voice. After all, it's all my fault. And I'm bringing Shadow. Then she looked at Ben. I'm sorry about what I said, she mumbled. Can we be friends again? We were friends, Ben asked, a gleam in his eyes. Of course we are, Matilda said with a nod and a smile. Ferry also smiled. But the thought of breaking into that old woman's house soon chased away his smile. He had felt a shiver down his spine when that woman was so close to him. As if she knew what was going to happen. As if she knew they would see each other again. Soon.